Hello, I'm Dr. Paul, and this is my beautiful wife Lynn, and today we're going to pick up where we left off with our last video talking about diabetes. We covered type 2 diabetes, some of the complications of long-term high blood sugar due to diabetes, and now we're going to talk about type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is also called juvenile diabetes, and people are usually diagnosed with this either in childhood or as a teenager. Some people are diagnosed later in life, as I was, but type 1 diabetes is believed by most people to be due to an autoimmune reaction, whereas type 2 diabetes is a lifestyle diabetes. So a type 1, like I have, is usually more devastating and harder to control than type 2. I've been living with it for 34 years, 33
35.
years.
35.
Somewhere in there. And I think I've got a pretty good handle on it by now. So this is insulin-dependent diabetes. That means in order to control the blood sugars, I have to take insulin, because even if I don't eat carbohydrates, my blood sugar still creeps up because I produce no insulin at all. So one of the very important things about type 1 diabetes is you need to educate yourself about it and know what you're dealing with. There are a lot of things that your health professionals, your doctor, your dietitian are not going to tell you. And a good part of it is because they don't know. They haven't lived with it. All they know is what they read in the books. And most of them do not have the empathy or the deep down feelings of empathy for you in order to really do the best they can. They're just giving you, repeating information that they got when they were educated by their university or whatever. So you have to go out and educate yourself. And one of the things that has helped me, and is I would highly recommend for everybody, is this book, Diabetes Solution. And this guy that wrote this book, Richard Bernstein, MD, he's a medical doctor, but he was an engineer. He was an engineer, and like me, he was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. I think he was in his 30s, I believe. But he was more than a teenager, definitely. And he has dedicated his medical practice to helping people with diabetes, and there is so much good information in this book. I recommend that anybody with type 1 or type 2 diabetes buy this book. This is Diabetic Solution by Dr. Richard Bernstein.
And that book has been around for a while, so you may have to do a little searching. You've had it since 1987, right?
Right, I got it in 1987, I think.
When were you diagnosed with
Kidney
in
failure?
No, diabetes. 1986.
I
You probably, yeah, about then.
probably about then, yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, the things to controlling type 1 diabetes is, number one, educate yourself. Next, understand that the reason your blood sugar goes up is because of carbohydrates. It's not because of meat, eggs, and protein. It's because of sugar, candy, ice cream, bread, pasta, grains, cereals, potatoes, fruit, vegetables, dairy. There's some dairy that's okay, such as cheese, butter, full-fat yogurt. And full-fat yogurt means don't eat the yogurt that's 2% or fat-free. That's got carbohydrates in it, and that will raise your blood sugar. The one with the full fat is the one you want. That's more healthy for you.
And
So-
you also want meat, eggs, and nuts.
Right. And another thing is stop eating when once you're not hungry anymore. So instead of filling your plate up like you used to and eating it all, just take about half of what you normally would. And when you're finished with that, if you're not hungry, then don't have any more. You're just causing yourself problems when you take in too much food. And even if you don't eat any carbohydrates, a full stomach gives a response of stimulating your blood sugars to go higher. I don't know why it does that, but it does. So you need to be aware of that. If you stuff yourself, even if all you eat is meat, your blood sugar is still going to go up some. So
Isn't there something you have to watch about managing if you had taken an injection of insulin before you eat, and then you don't eat as much as you thought you were going to eat? Now you have a management issue. Am I right?
right.
So then what do? When you thought you were going to eat a whole plate full of food, and it turns out you filled up faster. Now you're full, but your insulin that you took to cover the meal was for a full dinner.
If that's the case, then you've got to eat a little carbohydrates to make up for that.
Right.
If you don't, you're going to get low blood sugar because all the insulin you took. But the thing to do is to plan ahead. And don't take a full dose if you think you're only going to eat a half amount of food. So you have to be aware at all times that you are a diabetic and you're not like everybody else around you. So you have to take special precautions and think ahead of what you're going to do and how you're going to do it.
Well, and I might mention, if you are in a restaurant and you take a shot before you eat, can that be an issue?
Yeah, it can, and I'm gonna get to that
Okay.
and cover that part more
Okay.
in a few minutes. The another thing that causes high blood sugar is prepackaged foods, and prepared meals that you buy in the grocery store, that it all comes in one box and it's already ready to eat, and all you have to do is thaw it out and put it in the microwave for a few minutes, and that's your meal. Those things are loaded with sugar and carbohydrates, and they are really bad for a diabetic. So be cognizant of that fact. The things that you want to eat are cheese, butter, full-fat yogurt, meat, and eggs.
And fish
and fish, shellfish, and wild game. That's one thing about living here in Montana. We don't eat much beef at all. We eat elk and deer, and that's about it. Every once in a while we'll get a beef steak, but not very often.
Well, and you're also going to want to prepare fresh vegetables as a good part of your meal. Fresh fruits are fine, but there's going to be some that spike your blood sugar much more than others, and you're probably going to get to that too.
Right. Some of the fruits that you want to avoid are bananas, pineapple, grapes. These are high in sugar. Even though it's fructose, it immediately converts to glucose and raises your blood glucose and gives you high blood sugar. So I know, because I've tried it. Then, along with what you should eat and what you shouldn't eat, on the other side of that is low blood sugar. The food causes high blood sugar, which causes all the problems for a diabetic. But low blood sugar can also cause problems for a diabetic. And a type 1 diabetic who is taking insulin is at risk for low blood sugars that are caused by miscalculation of your dose of insulin, or by not eating soon enough after you took your dose of insulin. The main thing is usually by not realizing that what you ate didn't have quite as much carbohydrate in it as you thought it did, and you took more insulin than you needed to take, and therefore your blood sugar went too low. Now, when you get low blood sugar, some of the things that you see happening, it's called hypoglycemia, by the way. If you hear anybody talk about hypoglycemia, that just means low blood sugar, and sugar is the fuel for your body. And so when you get low blood sugar, your body can't work right. You don't think right, and your body just doesn't work. You get sleepy and you feel like you have to sit down. Okay. Some of the symptoms of low blood sugar are hunger, and sometimes severe hunger. Even though you have something in your stomach, you still get hungry. Poor or double vision, increased pulse rate, tremors, confusion, that's mental confusion, tingling lips and tongue, clumsiness, anxiety, stubbornness, irritability, violence, weakness, nausea, feeling hot, slurred speech, and sleepiness, and there are probably more. Now, my wife is the one who helps me whenever I get low blood sugar. It doesn't happen often. It happens very occasionally and less as time goes by. So why don't you make a few comments on low blood sugar?
Low blood sugar. Well, first of all, if you're in a restaurant with somebody whose blood sugar goes low because the meal took longer to get served than what was calculated with the insulin, somebody may think that you're sitting there with someone who's drunk, because all of a sudden he's acting up and he's not coherent, and that's a signal you need to get something in fast. The fastest thing I found is usually honey. Now sometimes people will do Coke, but you have a choice: honey, Coke, honey, Coke. I take the honey any day. Okay, but you take what's there, and if there's nothing there in front of you but the sugar packets are sitting on the table and you have a glass of water, take some of that and stir it in and have them drink it. Now the other thing that happens is I will say, well, I think maybe you're a little low, and this used to happen a lot more before there was a type of insulin that was changed. And my measure was, what's your address? If he couldn't answer that question, it was low blood sugar. He knew where we lived, right? Now, sometimes, I remember one time when I knew it was low, and I had awakened, and you know, it'd been after we'd been asleep for several hours, and I just woke up and thought, I think he's got low blood sugar. So when I woke him up, I was testing, and I said, well, what's my name? And I got a look from him like, you know, you look really familiar, but I just can't place the name right now. And I just, okay, time to go get some honey. Now, sometimes it might get to a point that you're not going to get cooperation. And that's happened when he says, no, I'm fine, I don't need anything. Well, you know, standing on the other side, that he does need something. And if you can't get someone to ingest the sugar water or the honey or whatever, you may have to resort to giving an injection of glucagon. And these are prescribed, and it comes ready to go. You're gonna mix the powder in this little container with the liquid, but then what you got to do is give the guy who doesn't think he needs any insulin, any glucagon, a shot. And so sometimes it's probably helpful that I was around a veterinary clinic and he had to sneak up on a lot of animals, because sometimes I've had to use that same technique. So you don't want things to get out of hand, because if it gets too low, you've got a crisis on your hands. And so just be mindful and go with your gut feelings. When you think there's a low, and if you're around it a lot, I say he will get what I call the look. And I'll say, I think you're low, go check your blood sugar. And usually if I've seen the look, and it's just more of a not fully on board look, I guess I'd call it. So that's what every man wants to hear. You know, honey, sometimes you have a not fully on board look. So anyway, that is that's from my point of view of how you're managing things.
Yeah, low blood sugar is just an imbalance of the insulin versus carbohydrates that you have taken into your body. If you have the right amount of carbohydrates and the right amount of insulin, the insulin works with the carbohydrates to metabolize it and use it and keep your blood sugar at a normal level. If your carbohydrates are too high, then your blood sugar is going to climb because you don't have enough insulin to utilize all the blood sugar that's produced by the carbohydrates. And if you have too much insulin in your body and not enough carbohydrates, then all of this insulin is going to use up whatever blood glucose you do have circulating in your blood, cause it to go lower and lower, and give you these symptoms of low blood sugar. Now, low blood sugar can be so severe that you can die. And I've thought a couple of times that if it hadn't have been for my beautiful wife, I'd be dead, because I've had severe low blood sugars in the past. Not lately, but in the very long past I have. And so it's really something to think about and to stay on top of.
And you know, this might be a good place to break, and we'll do one more to go over the success you've had using the plasma energy water that you have developed, and how it's helped you in the long-term management of your blood sugars and how things have improved. So we'll cover that in our third and final video.
Right.
But in the meantime, go ahead and give them our website. And
if you would like to see more about us and our website, go to plasmaenergysolution.com. And if you think you've gotten any value from this video, give us a thumbs up and share it with your friends and relatives. And if you know anybody who is a diabetic, share this video with them too. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time.